Watch out, everybody, because Nick is back. And this is so great. I just love the originality here and the way this is deviating from kind of some of the main conception of how this piece should sound as an orchestration. And I mean, especially deviating from my conception as well. So, I mean, for just in some respects, I almost feel that my approach can be a little limited at times, right? When I take on these challenges myself, I try to score kind of like what I would think the composer would want, or what my sensibilities would be for. I don't know about saying like the ultimate orchestration, but like what would be like the most usable kind of orchestration, or what would be like the most widely appreciated. Because let's face it, I am a tonal populist, which, you know, some people would say, well, that makes you a slut, Thomas. So, sorry, children. But I mean, it just, you know, so in some respects, that sort of limits me in a little way. You know, there is a challenge that I have planned for the future, though, where I am going to possibly be orchestrating some examples that are really out there. You know, I will try to be more adventurous on purpose because of the material. But anyhow, I really love the fact that this is so different, and there are some things here that, you know, I think that this, like, dynamically, this is very, very cool. I do not think you need to have like piano, horns, and then pianissimo everybody else. Just have one unified dynamic, right? So whether that's pianissimo with everybody or piano with everybody, whatever, you can figure it out. And this, of course, is fine. Diminuendo to triple P, and then crescendo to P, and then crescendo again to mezzo piano. So that actually is good, because like normally I would just say, oh, just make one hairpin that goes to the mezzo piano, except for the fact that you really do want to start this new phrase on piano, right? I appreciate that you avoided repeated notes under a slur, right? So you really were thinking about it. I'm wondering if you are a brass player, Nick, because there's a lot of really cool brass scoring in this. Yeah, and it, you know, it all works really great. I have to say though, like the kind of faux bourdon character of this, I was pointed out by a member on Facebook, the false bass. In other words, what we would also call like a 6/3 or a 6/4 chord. You know, the idea of having the low note be the inverted note, right? Have it be like the third or the fifth of the chord, right? Rather than the root. So after a while, it does start to really kind of grind for me, just as a listener, right? Just kind of using that for the very low note, just really getting way, way down there. But, you know, the second time I listened to the mock-up, it didn't bother me so much, you know. And then I sort of thought about it in my head and kind of used my musical imagination instead. And I thought, oh, you know, I mean, I guess it could work, right? I mean, you would want really smooth playing. I mean, I would mark, you know, sempre legato or sempre legatissimo for everybody, just to kind of make these lower tones work. I will say one thing: it's really hard to get these low notes all in one breath, especially for the tuba player. I mean, it's possible; it's not unplayable or anything, but you know. And then this right in here, I would just really give them more control. I think like this trombone stuff and the trumpets and so on, and it's all playable. But, you know, maybe you want to break down these slurs. It's just like, say, if you're going to market pianissimo legato or pianissimo legatissimo or whatever, then they're going to connect everything anyway, right? So you don't need to have such long slurs, and it gives the players more of a chance to sneak a breath here and there, right? So what if they were going ta 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 ta, right? And then ta 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 ta, right? I think it would work fine, and you know, just like with legato, like de-emphasizing the articulation a little bit and really making things feel smooth. Now, right in here, I don't think you need this mezzo piano at all. I think it's overdoing things. So if you just take this away, then you don't need the piano reminder, right? So it's just piano, crescendo, and back, and then crescendo to mezzo forte. Everybody, all the players will get that this is what you mean, right? So anything that is redundant, just get rid of it, right? So I would get rid of all the mezzo pianos here and get rid of the piano because it's a given, right? In between two, you know, at the end of two hairpins going like this, you come back to where you started, right? And you go up generally one dynamic degree or sort of, and just kind of better to leave it up to the players, right? In this case, or the conductor, they might bring it out even more, and then you like that, and you'll say, oh wow, then why did I go to forte here, right? So I would say leave that up to the players. So as far as the brass scoring is concerned, I think it's all pretty solid. I like how the horns are working together. However, you do have some strange voicing here of some of your chords, right? So and I can see the reason why. Like you're separating things so that these players can work together, and that's all good. But right in here, I would have an integrated chord, right? So the third player would be playing this written G, and the second player would be playing this written E, and that works better for them, right? And then then here split off into separate pairs, right? I think that works better. And then right here go back into an integrated harmony. Okay, and then the trombones, you know, as I said before, well, you got some doubling here on the low note, and then of course the octave below on the tuba, and then working together with the trumpets and everything. I think that's all nice. That's just very cool. All right, and then just a little touch of timpani, a little roll at the end. Okay, so how do you buzz roll a cymbal, Nick? I'm just curious. All right, so like a buzz roll is when the sticks bounce off of the, you know, and the player's allowing the sticks to sort of bounce off of, and it's usually off of a membrane, right? Because that's what bounces the tip of the snare stick back, right? So I'm wondering, I'm seeing that a lot, or at least 2 or 3 times so far on this. So I'd say don't use a buzz roll on a suspended cymbal. All right, and tell us. And I would say right here, just like SUSP period, right? And that's all you need to say, suspended. And if that's all that it's going to be for the entire piece, then just write that in here. And then you don't need to end on an X note head, right? I think that the player will know that they need to damp like if they see this 8th rest, they're going to damp the cymbal, and especially if they're doing like they're rolling down to a pianissimo. By the time they get to here, it's going to be inaudible, right? So especially with the timpani starting here, so you do not need to do anything fancy to sort of indicate, oh, I want this to be damped now, or whatever. I'm just kind of wondering, or maybe this X note head was because you're seeing it in Dorico or some other scores where like they use X note heads, but then why didn't you use X note head for these whole notes and dotted whole notes? Okay, one other little minor notation thing, and that is if you're going to start on the 3rd beat, it has to be a quarter note tied to a dotted half note, right? You shouldn't start with a whole note on the 3rd beat of 6/4. All right. Okay. So just think of 6/4 as being, it's like 6/8 time, right? So you wouldn't start on the 3rd beat of a 6/8 with a half note, right? So it's the same exact thing. So just divide everything into groups of 3, and then you're sweet, right? And people will notice that I have not been picky about standards such as, not having a dotted half rest and a dotted quarter rest when we get to the 12/8. I don't care about that stuff. I just that just adds another layer of detail that just we have to work on. Okay, so one last little thing here, and that is we kind of have a strange difference here between brackets and braces and so like here, see, I think that this works better. Yeah. So if you really must have a separated bell percussion from your other percussion. Hang on, there's a better way of doing this. See, this doesn't want to let go. All right, so I won't mess around with it now, but like you could, if this is going to be under the same brace, then they'll have the same bar line, right? So there'll be a gap. So, and I think this is a better way. And then like you don't really need the brace on the glockenspiel here, right? So, or on the vibraphone if you're not going to have a grand staff. So, yeah, so just leave. I would say this would be a good approach for this. All right, so now let's go on to the next page. All right, so this is really beautiful contrast. We had the really soft brass on the previous page. They got a little colorful, and that was enough, I feel, to have an emotional and timbral progression, right? And yes, you had the same progression throughout, but you added a little bit of percussion at the end, and it didn't feel draggy or static to me that much, right? And of course, the problem of pitch weight in the upper middle register of the piano is solved because you really added a lot of bass in there. And as I already commented on, middle voice clarity was great at the end of the last screen. So now, does the expansion of scope represent an expansion and progression of emotional and timbral qualities? And absolutely it does, right? You really came up with a completely new way of interpreting the material. Avoiding predictability in the treatment of left-hand patterns, I would say, yeah, just, I think that this worked really, really well. I think that, some things could be simplified in terms of your slurring right in here. So here you're going da, da, and then here, da. Yeah, you could slur each beam group and just mark legato here, and then it would just get kind of the same effect. But I think that this is a little fussy. Down, up, right? You might as well just have a slur across each one, right? But I think it'd be better to do one slur per beam group or one slur per half, right? So like if the problem with this approach, while it certainly works, it's not unplayable or anything, is you're giving all the bow, you're giving most of the bow to the beginning or to the first part of the bar, and then just a little bit to the end. So this is going to go, the bow is going to move twice as fast to get back to where it belongs here. So the player is going to have to control a little bit on the way back, and then on the way there, they're going to have to dig in a little bit more, right? So, I mean, it's fussy. It's better just to have, it's just a much more natural thing to go up bow, down bow, right? Or down bow, down bow, up bow. I said that backwards. Or to go down, up, right? Because you've got all this smooth peanut butter up here in your winds. They are ultra legato, right? So, and then if you were just to mark some slurs over this marimba part, like you should, right? This should all be slurred, just to give the player a sense of phrasing. So, anyways, like if that is all slurred, then what is going on here? If that is all slurred, then you really, you don't need to be obsessive about making this ultra legato in your slurs, right? And certainly these should agree a little bit more at the end, right? Okay. Okay, um, so having said that, this is all really cool. Like we're getting some flute lower down, but like everybody's pianissimo, so this should all balance pretty nicely. It's really close scoring though. You just really have got everybody piled on top of everybody else right in here. So it's going to have like the mock-up is close to that how it would sound, but you're going to get this. It's going to be way readier than you might think at first, or you might assume from having listened to the mock-up. Right? There's going to be more of a there's going to be an earthiness to this that is not really coming through in the mock-up. Okay, and this is just so lovely. Just the way the patterns are kind of working together, and and working, incorporating the whole middle voice idea all together. One thing that would certainly lighten this up would be if you kind of held back on the double bass a little bit, right? I mean, especially like really long slurring like this. Well, it's not impossible for a double bassist by any means. It's just like we're not really in the nature of the instrument so much, right? I mean, having said that, I've seen double bassists play really long bows on certain things, but I mean their bow is short, right? It's shorter than a violin bow, so there's only so much that they can fit under one bow. But then again, you've got like a piano dynamic, right? So, that just sort of is what it is, I guess. So, yeah, so doubling that more or less on marimba. I almost feel like you could have added more tones in the marimba in places, right? You could have had more harmonized lines. I don't think that would be a problem at this tempo for your marimba player. But yeah, but really just adding some slurs over it, and it's fine to like break it up into two separate staves. That marimba players can read just like a pianist, right? So you can have what's going on under one mallet and what's going on under the other mallet, or you can have it all on one staff. This could actually all be written on one staff if you wanted to, right? By breaking it up the way that you're breaking it up, you're sort of giving the marimba player the idea that these should possibly be played by separate hands, right? And that's wrong, right? This would all be played under two hands, and of course the player would get that immediately, but it's just that the way that you have divided it up, it's just really strange, right? Now, of course, right in here, that it helps to have a grand staff. So, I mean, for this one exception, right? I mean, you could actually have this still on one staff, but go to a bass staff here if you wanted. All right, so it's just a lovely idea, though, to have marimba playing this, and if you give them a slur, okay, and then it's piano and everything else, I mean that will help them pick the right mallet that that might be more optimal, right? Because there are a lot of different choices. There's a lot going on with marimba playing. It is not just plinking on a wooden tone bar with a mallet. There's much more to it than that. Like what a lot of people don't realize is oftentimes the marimba player will have different weights of mallets in different hands, because like they might need a different firmness for higher bars than lower bars, right? So I mean there's a ton of stuff, and then like the way that the player would even just do a simple scale or a chromatic scale is way different than a lot of keyboard based composers might expect. All right, so here we're kind of getting into our bell percussion. We got tings on the triangle and tings on the glockenspiel. I think it's beautifully effective in this ting, ting, ting. And just a little touch. So here we got the timpanist working as a bassist, right? But it's just only for 7 bars, right? So it's not overdone. But like, what's going on here? You want this to really last that long. Well, it probably won't last that long. Right, so I would say here is where I would put an LV tie, right? Just give them the like you don't even need this here, right? So just have the incomplete tie after a dotted half note, and you could even mark sauce underneath it, sauce for short for sostenuto, right? And this is really cool, the way that horns come in here, and kind of leave a cushion for the bass clarinet and bassoon to start climbing up, right? So it's all really good. Here I would recommend trading off between players to just get better clarity rather than sending A2 bassoonists all the way up into the tenor register. I've mentioned this before. It would be better for them to say maybe trade off on the G or the B. So first bassoon going up to the B, and then second bassoon covering it, especially if you're going to double with bass clarinet. So I mean, if you're already doubling clarinet and bassoon, it's going to be just very, it's going to have a very, very ruddy character going up into here, just like a, grunty is not the right word, but it's going to have a kind of a coarseness to it, I feel, with these three winds kind of going up here into the clarino register for the bass clarinet and the tenor register for A2 bassoons. So make it clearer, I would say. Just give it more clarity of texture. But it's such a cool idea to have that happen against the horns, right? And then here we're getting into the bell percussion. So, all right. So what I would recommend is spread your pitches a little bit, right? They're really close together, so you get this kind of a clang sound, and the clang sound doesn't really have that strong of a character of harmony because the pitches are so close together, right? So you've got the chimes right here on the bottom, and then you got the handbells kind of filling in the space between that and the vibraphone and so on, and that it's just so close together that you kind of get this, you just really get a kind of a coarse sound. So I feel that if you were to spread it out a little bit, then you would get way better results. So I invite you to do that just in just mock-ups. The problem is that it's all imaginary anyway. Our brain is filling in things that don't actually exist in bell harmonics. So some of it is just psychological, some of it is just our tendency to hear things that aren't there with our ear, and some of it is just the very, very strange way that the harmonics do behave, what really is sounding, right? So I feel that just spreading things out way, you can have distances of a sixth and an octave and everything else, and you would get like this big, beautiful wide tone rather than this very kind of close clang where the notes are so close together that I can't quite hear. My brain cannot make out what the harmony is that is supposedly playing there, right? But before I jump onto the next page, just to say, I really liked the way that everything was scored. If there had been any way of like adding some variance between bars, in the accompaniment, I think that could have even avoided even more predictability, possibly. I mean, it's not really predictable what you did here, but there's ways of bringing even more variation into it, is what I'm trying to say. So now, going on to this last page, so we're just, we're seeing the, so here we're getting some variation, and the bass clarinet goes dunk, dunk, dunk. That's really cool. Same thing with the pizzicato double basses, so it really is trading off between the two timbres, and I really like that a lot, right? And then once again, I feel that were these timbres, were these tones spread out more, we could really hear the harmonic identity of these clangs a lot better, and I think it would be closer to, like, if this is intended to be church bells, like sort of to evoke them, then that would really work great. And then this is really beautiful, the big rolled chord on harp, and of course it is fine to give these immense chords to the harpists because they love to do the hand over hand thing. It's going to take a bit longer to roll across it than you were hearing in the mock-up, right? It's just going to have this big, beautiful, glorious kind of a roll. So, I think that, like, dynamically, we kind of have to, I think you need to mark what's going on here from B, right? Even if like you just want to use the same dynamics as before, here's where I would put them in again. Okay, and then here I would mark this mezzo forte, right? And then here the answer could be piano, right? So, and then, yeah, this all works great. Solo, going to solo, which clarinet? Clarinet 1, right? So you have to just do CL period 1 solo, or the other way around if you like. And then this is really lovely, going from single reeds to double reeds, right? And I feel that's a good trading off note. It's not going to be as seamless as if you had an intermediary of English horn. If you want to see how that's done, check out. I'm actually going to do a tip in the next book. Like, what are the best registers to trade off from one instrument to another? How can you get the most seamless overlapping between registers? And it's funny that, like, you know, sometimes that what would seem obvious really isn't, and what would seem workable isn't either, right? Okay, and this is just so lovely the way you end up here with this this flute triad right here and the harp. See, like right here, you could really, this will really come out because you are bringing down the audience's focus, right? You are narrowing it and make it more and more intimate, and they're really going to be listening to, they're going to be hanging on every note, and then you get to here, right? And then bring this in. So just a little thought here. I felt the pizzicato here was not really effective enough to carry the, you know, like if you're going to be doubling this with flute going on, which was extremely effective, then I think that you need to double this pizzicato in here with something before you get started. There has to be I just feel that it doesn't stand on its own against, you know, like you've got this big, beautiful, glowing flute chord right in here, and you've got the kind of gushing left hand harp, and then you just have this plick, 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 and it just doesn't feel like it is. It feels a little bit of a non sequitur. Now, you may want to check your pitches right in here. You got a few wrong, or you got at least one wrong right in here. Okay, so yeah. So anyway, yeah. But all that aside, Nick, is such an impressive score. Yeah, I just felt, you know, I have seen the progression of imagination and craft from so many of our participants over the past 7 years, right? And then it's going to be 8, 9, 10 over the next 3 years. And I have some really special stuff planned. I have something completely out of left field for the next challenge, where there'll be lots of choices in what to do. And I'm going to really try to prepare everybody for that. And then there is going to be like a really wonderful, glorious piece after that. Just another really unexpected, rarely listened to work of a great composer, which, you know, is one of my favorite things to throw at you guys. And then for our 10th anniversary, for year 10 of this, there will be enormous amounts of choices and hopefully just a maximum of creativity and excitement. So anyways, really, this is just so enjoyable. Thank you so much, Nick, for putting so much great work into this and imagination and everything else, and for supporting the channel, and for continuing to be a part of this of these yearly challenges. It just really means a lot. And thanks to everybody who has been watching this video. I'm sure you're just bursting with things to tell Nick about what you liked or what you feel could help him more expertly approach this kind of scoring, right? So, and you might have some ideas on how to express this kind of bell chord in a way that's a little bit more coherent, right? So I would really be interested to read the comments below, and I've been reading everybody's comments, and everybody has been so fair and so so kind and generous with their time and their ideas, and I appreciate that so much. It is just making me so happy, and it is what makes the 150, 155 evaluations so worth it for me. All right, thanks to you all, and I will see you tomorrow for 3 more of these really cool videos.